And welcome back. This is the Church of Sweat and Effort, and I am Brother Jacob. And today we are going to be building our temples and also building our minds a little bit. We're going to watch, well, I'm going to watch, y'all are going to listen and learn to the words of my man James at Shredded Sports Science on YouTube. All right, this is the playlist, the Mythbusters playlist. I'm gonna go ahead and be watching that while doing a little workout here on the couch. Go ahead and join me.
Correlation does not mean cause and effect.
The byproduct is lactic acid. And as you're seeing in this sponge here,
Turn this up a
lactic
little
acid
bit.
builds up in your muscles. So that's why you get that burn when you're working out hard.
Zero. And if people
Hope you
would
can hear
understand that concept within YouTube Fitness, it would wipe away a lot of the misinformation that you are given. And so this idea of lactic acid
Just follow
causing
along
that
as you
burning
listen.
sensation within your muscles during heavy or high intensity maximal effort exercise is completely wrong and incorrect. And so to start, lactate and lactic acid are not technically the same thing. Now, when we hear about lactic acid within fitness, these two terms are interchangeably used. However, we need to be clear that lactate is different to lactic acid. Now, for the purpose of this video and the message I will give you, the actual differences does not matter greatly, but I will be referring to lactate in this video. The difference comes down to the chemical structure, whereas where lactic acid has a hydrogen ion which is available for donation, and so it's this proton which is different to the chemical structure of lactate, but that doesn't matter. You don't need to bog down your mind with that. For this video, what is the main point of this video is that you should not fear lactate. And so we need to understand what it is first. And so when our body produces energy, it can do this in many ways. It can do this with oxygen during sort of aerobic work, where we are able to consume oxygen during these activities, and also anaerobically, where we struggle to consume enough oxygen due to the activity we're doing. Now, for example, hill sprints or some sort of maximal effort weightlifting. And without oxygen, our body can use a process called anaerobic glycolysis to produce energy, to produce ATP. And when we're not able to consume enough oxygen, our body temporarily converts something called pyruvate into lactate. And this lactate allows for glucose breakdown and therefore for the production of energy. And you have to understand that lactate production is a usable source of energy and it has its function within the body. And so it most certainly is not the boogeyman of fitness and something you want to avoid. And the issue has been with some people and sort of research that there was a correlation between an increase in lactate production and acute fatigue during exercise. And so people wrongly attributed this correlation to a straight cause and effect, and in fact it is not. And so within this anaerobic glycolysis, we have the production of this lactate, which is not actually causing this acute fatigue within your muscles. So what is causing that? Well, it's actually an accumulation of protons. And this accumulation of protons creates an acidic environment, which is creating that burning sensation. Because as the amount of protons increase during this anaerobic process, the pH levels will decrease, which creates this acidic environment.
And through that process, you're actually releasing these acidic protons, which are positively charged hydrogen ions. And, you know, the pH will drop if the protons start to accumulate. And that's really where that acute fatigue mechanism is sort of based on, is that proton accumulation. So that's why when we work out really hard and we're doing high intensity exercise sprints and things of that sort, that's why we feel those effects.
Too many protons.
Too many protons, man, and that's it right there.
Going, got
Dr.
about
Joe
2 more
explains the
inside.
sensation as, in a way, an innate protective mechanism to the stress of anaerobic hypoxic-like conditions. Hypoxic meaning the absence of oxygen. A biological stop signal, if you will.
And you have to think about it. It's a protective mechanism, because when you're exercising above your anaerobic threshold, like doing max effort sprints, your CrossFits, and all that stuff, it's a metabolically stressful environment. And what I mean by that is that you're lowering that pH, you're creating this acidic environment, which is damaging to cells. And so, as a protective mechanism, your body tries to stop the stress that is causing that, right? So it's like a biological stop signal. And the burning sensation is the same thing. We think about pain. What is pain from a biological standpoint? It's a protective mechanism. Right?
So there's actually a biological purpose to this kind of acidic environment that is created during this anaerobic exercise. And it's a signal to you to stop that exercise, a protective mechanism so you don't damage your body. And so now, does that mean you have to absolutely stop what you're doing? No, of course you don't. You use specificity. Of course you take breaks in between your sets, your training, etc. But most certainly, this is a stop signal which is produced by the body. And we have various stop signals, biological inherent stop signals in many, many areas of physical fitness. And so this was just a quick sort of myth buster. And is this something that you absolutely need to know and apply? Well, no, it's not. You don't need to think about lactate production. But what you can do is understand again how a really common piece of information has wrongly used correlation as cause and effect. And most certainly, if you're someone that fears lactate, that fears anaerobic training because of the production of lactate, you don't need to fear it. You just need to make sure that you're programming correctly. And so with the high maximal effort, you would decrease your volume and your frequency, depending, of course, on your training goals and specificity. So I hope this was useful. Trainer Sports Science, I'll see you soon.
Rated mature.
Hey guys, hey guys, hey guys.
PlayStation
hey
commercial.
Hey guys, hey guys.
Just gonna burn some extra fat. Mythbusters. Episode 2. L-carnitine for fat loss. I am not a nutritionist and therefore I'm highly qualified to give nutritional
Alright.
information on
Thanks for doing
YouTube.
great now.
So this is something that I've made a mistake about in the past also. And it's a real case of where theory does not
I'm
apply
gonna
to
get some upper
practical
body going,
supplementation. And in this video, I am going to reference some
Fingers
popular
pointing to the
fitness
side.
figures. And why am I doing this? Because their information is powerful. If you type in this topic into
Get
YouTube,
back
their videos
right there,
come
right
up
close
first
to
on
the
the
front of
front
the
page.
couch.
And that makes their information powerful because most people will click on the first few videos. Does that mean that because I disagree with them about L-carnitine, that all their information is invalid? No, it doesn't. Does it mean they're bad people? No, it doesn't. Does it mean they're purposefully misleading you? No, it doesn't.
And 95% of your L-carnitine stores are in your muscle in general. So that means when you're moving around, when
Right.
you're lifting weights, when you're running, your body is
You
either
can also
using
make it a
glucose
little harder
that's stored in the
by
muscle,
putting your feet
Glycogen.
on the cuff here.
or it's using fat. So let's say you had 50% glucose utilization and 50% fat utilization.
So which one is it, Thomas? You've just said that when you exercise, you either use fats for fuel or sugars for fuel. And then later in the same video, you give an example based on this research where you're using both sugars and fats for fuel. We don't know exactly how much, for example, fat for fuel we use at lower intensity. This is a very variable number. And I want to give a disclaimer that this video is about L-carnitine supplementation for fat loss purposes
Right.
only. There is
Can't take my
validity to
bad.
the
I feel
idea
really
that
good.
L-carnitine can supplement for
Yeah. Do some
mood and
push-ups.
for cognitive issues and for endurance and performance. However, a lot of supplements that are targeted at you are for fat loss purposes, and I simply disagree, and I believe that you are being misled in some cases. And so what is the most significant support of L-carnitine for fat loss? Well, Center et al. 2012 did find a positive relationship between L-carnitine supplementation and fat loss in overweight cats. I do not. And so
Now we do it,
carnitine
don't?
is produced by the body, but perhaps
Blow
in
yourself down to where-
insignificant doses, and so you take in
Your
carnitine
nipples.
through food sources,
I'll touch in
primarily
the
through
corners.
animal protein sources.
Right here,
You're gonna
touching
add
the
about
edge.
3,000
Okay?
milligrams of carnitine.
Lower your
Now,
chest to
carnitine
it,
is just
push
an
back
amino
up.
acid that's synthesized
Nice
in
and
the
easy.
liver
Let's
and
go do
synthesized in the
another.
kidneys. Okay, super simple. It's naturally occurring, and a lot of times we are deficient in it.
That a lot of time we are deficient in it. And again, this is kind of misleading. This builds towards this support of L-carnitine. It gives you this kind of storyline to follow, but it's not accurate. Actually, yes, carnitine deficiency is valid. But if we look at Rabush 1992, he actually explains that deficiencies would happen for premature infants or infants with disease or disease related to aging, and certain populations who may not ingest animal protein
there's the
sources
sweat.
such as vegans. These may be the populations who are deficient
Due to
in
that.
carnitine. To suggest that
Alright.
a lot of the time we are
That's what
deficient
they
in
use to
carnitine
sit-ups.
is not correct. But if you are deficient in carnitine, then yes,
I'm putting
absolutely
my feet
supplementing in it is important.
over the
But
back
isn't
of the
that
couch.
common sense? Isn't that really at the heart of what supplementation is? If you are deficient in it for some reason, that actually supplementing to normal levels makes perfect sense. And we have to distinguish between acetyl L-carnitine and L-carnitine. There is a slight difference. Acetyl meaning that it has an acetyl group attached, which helps it move through the blood-brain barrier, which has specific uses towards cognitive function. Whereas L-carnitine, which has a different molecular structure, both forms of supplementation are ineffective for fat loss. And so first of all, I have to explain how carnitine fits into the fat loss process. We have lipolysis, which involves the breakdown of stored fat and mobilization of fatty acids. These fatty acids are transported through the blood into the target cell to be burnt up. And within the target cell, they have to move from the cytoplasm of the cell to the mitochondria. The mitochondria is where this sort of this burning of this fatty acid takes
15
place,
right there.
where it is converted to
Alright.
ATP and usable forms of energy. And the way that the fatty
your
acids
back
are
don't like
transported from the
coming down,
cytoplasm
get
to
that
the
little bend down,
mitochondria is
do
with
them
the
on the
help
floor.
of carnitine. So this is where carnitine fits into the fat loss process as a transporter of the fatty acids into that fire. You can kind of think of it as a shovel throwing those fatty acids into the fire to be burnt up. And so it makes theoretical sense that supplementing L-carnitine would help to expedite this process.
Now, I want to reference a study from 2011, because up until 2011, it was all kind of speculative whether L-carnitine worked or not. And after 2011, it just kind of blew up in the media.
And so he references this 2011 study, and this is the smoking gun for L-carnitine supplementation targeted towards fat loss.
A UK study had subjects take 2 grams of L-carnitine, L-tartrate, twice a day.
Wall et al. 2011.
You see, in 2011, the Journal of Physiology found that if you supplemented L-carnitine for a period of 6 months, at least in this case of this study, L-carnitine for 6 months led to a 21% increase in carnitine stores within
Okay.
the
Now
muscle.
we're here.
That
Let's
means
do
a
some
20%
negatives,
increase
okay?
in ultimate fat utilization. So more L-carnitine in the muscle means
Push
more
that right.
fat utilization in the muscle, which can ultimately mean a leaner physique.
And I
Close the
disagree
bottom
with
of
him
the
that there is
couch.
direct causation
Feet
shown
straight, keep
in
them
this
off the floor.
study in relation
Up.
to a further
Down.
burning, mobilization, or transport of fat, whatever you want to call it. And so what this study does show is a real significant promise that increased muscle carnitine is possible through supplementation, but also that at lower intensity exercise levels, less glycogen is used as an energy source. But that is not a clear indication that fat oxidation has increased as a result of L-carnitine supplementation. In fact, this study did not measure lipid
All right.
oxidation, which you would think would be
Need to
quite
move my coffee
important
table
for these
again.
people giving you this information, and therefore much more is needed. And what's kind of funny about this is that
Side
in
to
Thomas
side.
DeLauer's video, he gives references, and the references he gives, of course, Wall et al., which does not directly support his claims, but he does reference it quite correctly in some senses, but he also references Salin as one of his references, and Salin actually disagrees with what Thomas says. Salin, who completed an analysis of this study, who concluded that actually, yes, it did not measure lipid oxidation. And he said, and I quote, "It may be anticipated that further work on this subject will determine whether carnitine can specifically enhance lipid oxidation." Branch and Adair 2002 did not find a significant effect of L-carnitine supplementation on fat loss. Villani et al. 2000 studied 15 obese women in a double-blind study who took 4 grams of L-carnitine, and no significant change was found between the test group and the control group. I think it's time for another fat-burning session.
Woo!
You see, in 2011, the Journal of Physiology found
The Journal of Physiology found, again, this confuses me because this makes me believe that he hasn't read the research or
Sip
does not
water.
quite connect with research, because the Journal of Physiology did not find Wall et al. 2011, their study found,
Now,
and this was
I'm gonna go ahead
published in the
now.
Journal of Physiology. That would be like me saying
Lay back on
YouTube
the edge.
found that the stabilizing muscles in the body basically stabilize your body.
What's
Now,
the main
touch the floor in front.
reason for having
Do
abs?
that.
That is
One.
to stabilize your spine. Your core muscles are meant to keep your spine stabilized, basically.
Actually, it was Vince Sant who made that profound statement. And so when I hear him talk about it, does he communicate some accurate information from the study? Yes, but is his conclusion correct? No, it's not. And if you want to take this study literally, let me explain to you what that would mean.
Ooh, yeah.
This study showed an increase in muscle carnitine levels after 6 months of supplementation with a carbohydrate drink. But there was no significant increase in muscle carnitine levels leading up to those 6 months. So you would have to take 2 grams of carnitine for 6 months before you would even see an increase in your muscle carnitine levels, which may lead to more fat burning, but this was not clearly measured. Does that sound to you like a solid base for selling you L-carnitine supplements with a direct cause of helping to burn fat?
So more L-carnitine in the muscle means more fat utilization in the muscle, which can ultimately mean a leaner physique.
What they found after 24 weeks of the study is not only did subjects burn more fat when they exercised, which spared muscle glycogen, allowing them to have more energy, go longer, go stronger.
And so what this study does show is that more fat was used for energy at lower intensity, which would be expected, and we do know this. However, it does not show that it was the mechanism of L-carnitine transporting fatty acids to be oxidated that was the key determinant in the energy utilization. It just does not measure for that, and that's where this is getting lost in his information.
The group consuming the carnitine versus the placebo group, who are getting 160 grams of fast digesting carbs a day, didn't gain any body fat.
Nope. And then Jim talks about body mass within the study, and this is misleading in my opinion. Why is this? Well, firstly, because this study clearly states that each participant was told how many calories was in the drink they were being given. In the control group, which was a carbohydrate drink with no carnitine, and the test group, which contained the carbohydrate drink with the L-carnitine in it. And it was 600 calories. And so it is correct to say that the L-carnitine group did not increase body mass, and that the control group did increase body mass by around 2 kilograms, which may not be overly significant amongst the participants in 6 months. However, there's, again, no clear cause or effect that it was the L-carnitine that was the determining factor in this body mass maintenance. And they didn't lose body mass, they only maintained body mass. You know, other variables such as, calories in and out, energy balance, which is pretty important to body recomposition, were not measured or communicated. We don't know the participants' different activity levels, their jobs, their non-exercise activity thermogenesis, how many calories they were burning. Were some people measuring their calories better than others? Were some people training harder than others? We don't know. And so having this direct communication of, well, the L-carnitine group did not put on mass, again, is slightly misleading in my opinion in terms of how this piece of research is being communicated to you.
The group consuming the carnitine versus the placebo group, who are getting 160 grams of fast digesting carbs a day, didn't gain any body fat. I've already got you covered with 2 grams of Carnipure L-carnitine L-tartrate in my post chain.
And again, Dr. Jim, well, that is convenient. And I like this quote from Dr. Eddie Joe, who says that physiology is not easily tricked. And I will talk more about him and his graphics and his information in other videos. And so this very much is a case of where something makes sense theoretically in terms of the mechanism of fat loss, but where the supplementation to try and aid in that process does not work based on the research we have. And some of you may say, well, what about the synergistic effects if I combine something such as caffeine with L-carnitine? Well, it wouldn't make a difference because they have different roles in the fat burning process. Something such as caffeine is a fat extractor, helping to take fat out of the cells, whereas, as I've said, carnitine is specific to the transport of fatty acids between the cytoplasm and the mitochondria. And so, in essence, in my opinion, I just don't see how that would make a significant effect. And so I'm James Linker, Shredded Sports Science. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you soon.
I don't want to show all of his, so far, 5 Mythbusters episodes. You know, you're going to have to go to his YouTube channel and subscribe and hit that notification bell yourself, so that way you can keep getting awesome and informative videos like the ones you just heard while I worked out. So as you can see, you got your couch, you got what you want to watch on the TV, and you get yourself a little bit of workout, or you get yourself a little bit of entertainment. So there you go. And this way, when you're watching, by watching Shredded Sports Science, you're not only getting entertainment, but you're also getting education. All right, you want to go ahead and check it out. I encourage you to do so. Shredded Sports Science on YouTube and on Instagram. Go ahead and follow them. And while you're also checking out things on the internet, I implore you to go and check out DamnSerenityAthletics.com. All right, a lot of good yoga and stuff like that, even including chair yoga. You can take that chair yoga and you can translate it, part of it, to using it on the couch as well. So there you go. Check it out and use the promo code Jacob for $2 off your membership. All right, that is promo code Jacob at Damn Serenity Athletics. And again, Shredded Sports Science on YouTube. Check it out. I'm Jacob with Empowerment Fitness, reminding you to have a good day. Be excellent to yourself and each other. And I'll see you next Sunday for the Church of Sweat and Effort, where it doesn't matter your religion, because the temple is your body. Come and build it with me. Here we go. And